Michigan versus Indiana.
Michigan favored by 22.5 on the road at Indiana. Gus and Ginny and I will be there. Big Noon Kickoff will be there. Now, because we're there and I might know a little bit too much about this game, obviously insider information, I'm not going to give you a pick in this one. I will just say that for Michigan this week, their whole mantra needs to be next step. Okay, it's no longer good enough to just roll out there and win the game. They've got to take the next step. This is where they've got to learn from the great teams in college football, like Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia at times, which is you got to go out there and dominate to a huge fashion. I've always talked about, and I've talked about it on this podcast, kind of the process of building a giant in college football. And that process being you got to lose big before you lose small, and you got to lose small before you win small, and you got to win small before you win big. But every one of those is a point in which you have to transition to the next step. And for Michigan, this is where you have to start transitioning to the next step, in particular in conference play. Finish the plays that are there. I thought that they could have blown Maryland out, but they didn't finish the plays that were there. They didn't get the sacks when they got the quarterback pressured, and they didn't get the big home run throws down the field from J.J. McCarthy because he missed them long. It's time that they start hitting those. That's what I'll be looking for this week when they go to Indiana and face the Hoosiers. All right, next game. What's up?
Ohio State versus Michigan State.
Boy, watch out for them Buckeyes, because Ryan Day is keeping no prisoners. Am I right, Greg Schiano? Am I right? This guy is on a mission. I think something happened to Ryan Day last year, late Thanksgiving weekend, when they lost to Michigan. And it seems like his coaching staff, and that program are on a mission. This is a terrible matchup for Michigan State. Terrible matchup. They're getting 26.5. The Buckeyes on the road in the Big Ten against a team that won 11 games last year is favored by 26.5. And you know what? I find it hard to believe that they're not going to cover that. Why, Joel? Well, the Spartans have the 115th ranked pass defense in the country. 115. Last year, they were dead last. This Spartans defense is not anywhere near good enough to stop Ohio State. Ohio State's the best offense in the country. Now, the one thing that you could point to and you could say, like, are they going to play with that amount of efficiency in their first game on the road? That remains to be seen. I think it helps that you've got a second-year quarterback and not a first-year quarterback. So that's why I would say, hey, C.J. Stroud is used to this. He can go out there, and he's going to play well regardless. It's not like their injury situation with Jackson Smith and Jigba has slowed them down. They've got weapons everywhere. Even Travion Henderson, not being what he was a year ago, hasn't slowed them down at all. Mayan Williams just shows up, runs the heck out of the rock. This Ohio State team is really good. The difference with Ohio State this year, and why it might be easier to cover a 26.5 number, is the fact that their defense is also really good. They're top 25 in both total and scoring defense this year. That is a huge mark for them. Huge mark from what they were a year ago. And this Michigan State offense, they do not have Kenneth Walker. And he ain't walking through those doors, folks. Because with Kenneth Walker, they could mask the defensive inefficiencies. They couldn't do it against Ohio State in the shoe last year, but in other games, they could mask them. In back-to-back weeks, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen Michigan State score 7 and 13. That ain't cutting it. That ain't cutting it. By the way, that 7 was against Minnesota, and it was in like the last minute of the game. They were basically shut out. So it's not like coming home is going to help them all that much. Michigan State's in trouble. Ohio State is on a mission, and that 26.5 might not be big enough. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.